Imagine training for months, gearing up to defend your homeland, finally spotting an enemy drone in your sights. You take aim fire and take down one of your own.
Oh, wow.
Sounds a little ridiculous, right?
Yeah, it does.
But sadly, it's not a joke.
Not at all.
This is the reality for many soldiers who fall victim to friendly fire.
And a recent incident with the Russian military really highlights this issue.
Exactly what we're diving into today.
It should be interesting.
Welcome to QuickCasters, where we take a deep dive into a specific topic.
That's right.
And today we're uncovering the often overlooked world of friendly fire.
It's a fascinating topic for sure.
We're going to explore its history, causes, and why it just keeps happening.
Even with all the technology we have today.
Which is mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is.
So to kick things off, let's talk about this recent incident with the Russian Territorial Guard.
All right.
These guys accidentally shot down their own surveillance drone.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
It really shows just how widespread this problem is.
For sure, it seems like they were trying to stage a propaganda piece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, show off their military prowess, but it totally backfired.
So what happened?
Well, they proudly shot down this drone thinking it was an enemy, but it was actually one of their own.
I bet that was awkward.
You can say that again. And it wasn't just any drone.
What was it?
It was a valuable piece of surveillance equipment.
Oh, no. I can only imagine the scramble to delete that footage.
Yeah, I bet they didn't want that getting out.
Makes you wonder about their training and communication.
Absolutely. And the fog of war plays a huge role, too.
Right, a fog of war.
It's more than just a catchy phrase,
I guess so.
It really captures the chaos and confusion of battle.
Where every decision could be life or death.
Exactly. And in this case, a split-second decision led to some pretty serious consequences.
Like destroying their own equipment.
Definitely, and probably a stern talking to from their superiors.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
But this incident is just one example of a much bigger problem.
So friendly fire has been around for a while.
Oh yeah, it's been plaguing militaries for centuries.
Wow, across different cultures and conflicts even.
Exactly, and it's strange because despite all the technological advances,
You'd think we'd have it figured out by now.
you would, but friendly fire is still a major issue.
So if technology isn't the answer, what causes it?
Well, the fog of war is a big one, like we talked about.
Right.
But it's not just about visibility, it's the psychological strain, too.
The stress of being in a life or death situation.
Exactly. The sensory overload, the fear, it can all lead to mistakes.
Even for the most experienced soldiers.
Even for them, under that kind of pressure, anyone can misinterpret information or misidentify targets.
It's like the brain just short circuits.
And then you add communication breakdowns, equipment failures.
The difficulty of telling friend from foe in the heat of battle.
It's a recipe for disaster.
A recipe that sadly led to countless tragedies.
We see it not only in smaller incidents like the one in Belgorod, but also in major conflicts throughout history.
Speaking of major incidents, there was that one in Kursk.
You mean where a Russian attack helicopter destroyed their own artillery unit?
Yeah, that one.
It shows how friendly fire can happen even in highly trained militaries.
It's a scary thought.
It is, and it underscores the fact that this isn't a problem unique to any one country.
It's a universal challenge.
That requires a multi-pronged approach to solve.
So what are some strategies to mitigate the risks?
Well, one of the most important is training,
Makes sense.
but not just basic combat tactics. It's about drilling soldiers on target identification, communication protocols, decision-making under pressure.
So basically preparing them for the chaos of battle.
As best as possible, simulations and war games play a big role too.
Trying to replicate the real thing.
Right. The more realistic the training, the better prepared they'll be.
But training alone isn't enough.
You're right. What about the technology side of things?
That's what I was thinking. How has tech tried to prevent these incidents?
That's a great question, and there have been some significant advancements.
Like what?
Well, we now have sophisticated identification systems that use transponders and other tech to distinguish friend from foe.
It's like giving them an extra set of eyes.
In a way, yes, but technology has its limitations.
Of course.
These systems can malfunction, signals can be jammed, and ultimately...
Human error is still a factor.
Exactly.
So it's not foolproof, but it's a step in the right direction.
I agree. What else are militaries doing?
Yeah, what else?
Well, another key area is stricter rules of engagement.
What are those?
Basically, guidelines that dictate when and how soldiers can use force.
To minimize unintended casualties.
Exactly, setting clear boundaries and making sure they're absolutely certain of their target before firing.
That makes sense, especially in modern conflicts where multiple forces operate in close proximity.
Right, clear communication is paramount.
because miscommunication can be deadly.
Especially in the fog of war, are there any technologies or strategies for improving communication and coordination?
I'm curious about that.
We've seen huge strides in real-time information sharing. Advancements in GPS technology, digital mapping, and secure communication networks.
So units have a better understanding of their location and the location of friendly forces.
That's right, reducing the chances of misidentification.
It's a huge improvement from relying on hand signals and radio chatter.
It is, but even with all these advancements, training technology rules of engagement.
Friendly fire still happens.
Well, unfortunately, yes.
Why is that? What are we missing?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one that's constantly being debated.
By
Military strategists, psychologists, technologists, you name it.
So what's the answer?
Well, I think we have to remember that war is inherently unpredictable.
And chaotic.
Exactly. No matter how much we try to control the environment, there will always be human error.
So it's not about eliminating errors completely.
It's about accepting that they're inevitable.
And building systems that are resilient to those errors.
You got it. You know, when we talk about these incidents, it's important to remember the impact on the soldiers involved.
It's not just about the loss of life or equipment, right?
Right. It's about the mental and emotional scars.
The trauma.
Exactly. Imagine accidentally taking the life of a comrade.
Someone you trained with, fought alongside.
Even shared meals with.
The guilt must be unimaginable.
It can be absolutely debilitating, and it doesn't just disappear when the battle is over.
It can linger for years.
Decades even.
Leading to PTSD, depression, anxiety.
All sorts of mental health challenges.
And it's not just the person who pulled the trigger.
Right. Witnesses, those who arrive later, even those who hear about it.
They can all be affected.
It can shake their trust in everything.
Their unit, their leaders, even their mission.
It's like a crack in the foundation of trust.
And if it's not addressed, it can spread.
Weakening the entire unit.
That's why mental health resources are so important.
Absolutely not just to treat the symptoms.
But to create a culture where seeking help is encouraged.
Where soldiers feel comfortable admitting their struggles.
Without fear of judgment.
Exactly, recognizing that mental health is just as important as physical health.
And, this focus on mental health isn't just about compassion.
It's about strategic necessity, too.
Right. Because when soldiers are struggling,
their ability to perform is compromised.
Their judgment, their reactions, their communication,
it all suffers.
Creating a ripple effect throughout the unit.
So investing in mental health resources is not just the right thing to do.
It's the smart thing to do.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that soldiers are equipped to handle the demands of modern warfare.
And speaking of modern warfare,
things are changing rapidly.
Technology is advancing at an incredible pace.
And it's impacting how wars are fought.
And the challenges soldiers face.
We talked earlier about some of the technological innovations.
Like the identification systems.
And real-time information sharing.
But technology can be a double-edged sword.
Definitely. While it can reduce human error.
It also introduces new complexities.
And potential points of failure.
Like the increasing reliance on drones.
On the one hand, it keeps soldiers out of harm's way.
But on the other,
it raises questions about responsibility.
When things go wrong.
Who's to blame if a drone malfunctions and fires on friendly troops?
The operator.
The manufacturer.
The commander.
It's uncharted territory.
And it gets even more complicated with AI and autonomous weapons systems.
Machines making life-or-death decisions.
Without human oversight.
It's a whole new set of ethical and philosophical questions.
Can we trust machines to make those calls?
What are the consequences?
How do we ensure accountability?
It's like something out of science fiction.
But it's happening now.
And the implications for friendly fire are huge.
Imagine an autonomous system misidentifying a target.
And firing on friendly soldiers?
It's a terrifying thought.
It is, and we need to be addressing these issues now.
Before it's too late.
We need guidelines, frameworks, precedents.
To ensure we don't lose control. Because as we've seen, the consequences of failing to address friendly fire can be devastating.
Not just for individuals,
but for entire societies.
It can erode trust in the military.
Undermine support for operations.
Fuel anti-war sentiment.
Even swing the tide of a conflict.
Prolonging the fighting.
So it's not just a military issue.
It's a societal one.
And it demands our attention.
Our critical thinking.
Our willingness to have difficult conversations.
We need to move beyond blame.
And delve deeper.
Acknowledge the human cost of war.
The inherent risks.
The fact that mistakes will happen.
And be prepared to deal with those mistakes.
Support our soldiers.
Address the trauma.
Create a culture of support.
And keep asking the hard questions.
Why does this happen?
What are we missing?
How can we do better?
Because By challenging assumptions,
and thinking differently,
we can hopefully find solutions.
and create a safer world.
We've talked about a lot,
We have
from specific incidents,
the bigger picture.
the ethics, the tech,
It's a challenge.
friendly fire,
It really makes you think.
about ourselves, about technology, about conflict.
It's uncomfortable but important.
What really stood out to me
Yeah.
is just how many things.
Contribute to friendly fire.
It's not just one thing. It's not just equipment or communication.
It's the fog of war.
The mental strain of combat
Making life or death decisions.
in the heat of the moment.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And it shows that even the best,
The most trained
the most technologically advanced,
can still make these mistakes.
that brings up accountability.
Oh, you.
Who's responsible?
When it happens.
Is it the soldier,
the commander?
the policymakers?
It's never easy.
It's usually a combination of things.
A chain of events.
Errors, misjudgments,
It's a tough question,
ethically and legally,
especially with AI.
and autonomous weapons.
If a machine makes a mistake,
Who takes the blame?
the programmer,
The manufacturer.
the military,
We need to figure this out.
before it's too late.
Guidelines, frameworks,
Yeah.
laws.
We can't lose control.
Because ignoring this problem,
It has consequences
devastating ones,
for everyone.
individual societies,
Loss of trust in the military.
less support for operations.
Anti-war sentiment.
It can even change the course of a war.
Prolong the fighting.
So it's not just a military issue.
It's a human issue.
It affects all of us.
We need to pay attention.
Think critically.
Have those tough conversations.
We need to move beyond blame.
Look deeper.
Acknowledge the human cost.
The risks.
The fact that mistakes are inevitable.
And be ready to deal with them.
Support our soldiers.
Help them heal.
Create a culture of support.
Keep asking questions.
Why does this keep happening?
What are we missing?
How can we improve? We need to challenge our assumptions.
Think outside the box.
To find solutions.
Create a better world.
Well said.
Thank you.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
My pleasure.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us.
We hope this gave you something to think about.
If you want to learn more,
Check out the show notes.
that's it for this episode of QuickCasters.
Thanks for listening.
Subscribe and give me a like. Subscribe.